Hi everyone, this is Mark Siegel, and in this video I'm going to show you how to create a holistic rubric such as this one in a Google spreadsheet such as this, and have it grade and conditionally format for you as you go. So the first thing you want to do is open up a Google spreadsheet. So I've got one open, but I'm going to go backwards and actually show you how to create one. So to create a Google spreadsheet, just like you create any document, you go to create, and then you want to go down to spreadsheet. And when you click spreadsheet, you'll get a nice blank document. And of course, the first thing you should always do is give something, give it a name. So when you click on titled spreadsheet, I'm just going to give this a quick name of practice rubric. Okay, now the exact structure of your rubric doesn't really matter because spreadsheets work like an Excel spreadsheet. So it's a gigantic table is really what it is. You can format it however you want and make your cells as big as or as small as you want as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to merge these first couple cells at the top. So all I'm doing is clicking and dragging them. And you'll see up here in the toolbar there's a merge cells. And I'm just going to put student name in that one. Because what I'm going to do is every time I do this, I would put the student's name, like William Farrell, into the top of the spreadsheet. And I'll show you what I do with this in a minute. Now, if I go back to my holistic rubric, you can see here that I have a bunch of different categories, numbers, weights, etc. Now, if you were like me when you were paper, you would print out one of these for every single kid, and as the kid is doing a presentation or a paper or whatever, you put an X through this box. Well, we're going to do basically the same thing. Is we're going to put an X in a cell, but we're going to make it change as we do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the first two rows of this holistic spreadsheet so that you can see what I'm doing. So you can see that the first area was category, and they were 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And my first section was history. And I'm going to play around with the fonts in a minute to make everything a little bit bigger for you. But basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste because it's just a spreadsheet program. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to click and drag and highlight through these categories, because there's no reason to actually retype all of this if I don't need to. So I'm going to copy, which is Control C, and I'm going to copy the selection. And I'm going to go back here, I'm going to paste my selection. And boom, everything was pasted in there for me. So you can see that the formatting is a little weird. Google Spreadsheets, as opposed to Excel, defaults so that everything goes to the bottom of the cell. So I'm going to make some modifications so that everything kind of sits in the middle of the cell. So if I want to modify a particular cell, I want all of these. So I'm going to click and highlight across, and I'm going to make them default to the middle. So if you look up here in the toolbar, there's two alignments. This button here actually aligns left, center, or right. I'm not a big fan of center alignment, left to right, but I am top to bottom. So you can see the button directly next to it does vertical alignment, top alignment, middle alignment, or bottom alignment. So since one of my cells happens to have a lot of text in it, I'm going to put everything in the middle. Now again, you can play around with the formatting however you want. If you want to bold something, you can make it bold. If you want to change the font size, make one particular section really large in font so that the other ones carry through, you can do whatever you want. So I'm actually going to make these on the top bold just so I can see them a little bit bigger, and I'm going to make them, I'm seeing them better, I'm going to make them just a little bit bigger. Now, one of the things that this holistic rubric has, but it's all the way at the bottom, is your point values. So you usually have your score. So what I want to have is a column here for points. And I'm going to make this bold, and I'm going to change the font again to match. Okay, so I want a point value associated with all of this so that I can add up the points as we go so that the thing will total the points for me. So all I have to do is look at the bottom and see what the category, how much the student scored. Okay, so I put in my particular sections, and again, I can cut and paste. I just realized it works better if I have two whole sections here. So I'm going to put copy and paste all of that information. So again, I am going to align this. I'm going to change this one, make it a little bit bigger. Oops, that's too big. And bold. That doesn't fit, so if you want to adjust this with the cell, if you're not familiar with Excel, if you bring your mouse up to this space right on the line between the two, and you click and drag, you can make your columns bigger or smaller. So if your columns are not wide enough for you, you want to make them bigger so they don't take them as much room, you can do that very easily. And adjust. And a little known fact about Google Spreadsheets, if you adjust if you adjust one side, it automatically shifts everything else to the right or left of that column. So it doesn't automatically shrink the next cell like Excel does. Okay, so now I have two categories. And I can see here are my point values. So let's say a student does a paper and their history has a reasonable amount of information, but the information clearly comes from one source, which would be this category right here, number 3 in history. Well, here's the thing. There's no way to put a big X, with a pen like I would on a computer. So I have to find a way to change that particular cell so that the student knows that that's where that grade is coming from. So what you want to do is do something called conditional formatting. So if you come up here to Format, and you slide down to Conditional Formatting and you click it, you'll see it comes up with this conditional formatting. So if you click on the Text Contains box, you will see that it gives you a bunch of options. So for example, text contains a particular character or a particular word. Text does not contain something. Text is exactly this. Text cell is empty, and so on and so forth. If you had values, numerical values, it could change the scores as well. If it's a date, it could fill in a date. Okay, so you have a bunch of different options. So what I want to do is actually I want to leave it as the text contains. And this is going to sound strange, but this works well if you have good initials. But let's say, for example, my initials are unique, MDS. There's no words that have MDS together in them where the letters can possibly align. Or what I'm prone to doing is putting an X, because you know how we put the X in the square already. Well, here's an X. So I like to put a big double X. And the reason I use double X is I know that there's no words that I'm ever going to write in there that have double X's in them. So now I have two options. I can check off the text box so that when that particular cell contains a double X, it'll change the font color. Or my preference is changing the background color. So I happen to be partial to this light orange color. And I'm going to hit Save the Rules. Now watch what happens. So let's say again the student does the paper and they do the history. So they get a 3 in the history. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click in this cell, and at the end of it I'm going to put XX and hit enter, and it changes color. And that's the conditional formatting. So now the student knows exactly where they're scoring the points. So after I put in all the colors, I'm just going to put the point value here on the end. Okay? So now the thing about this is, okay, I conditionally formatted one cell, but what if I had a whole bunch of cells I want to do it? Simple. Just click and drag through your different cells. So you highlight everything together, go back to your conditional formatting, and set it up for all your cells. So this works really well if you set up your rubric in advance and then do the conditional formatting. So now, no matter where I click in here, everything will change. And I put the point value here on the end. So, and again, now I typed it. So I'm going to make all of these on the end bold, and I want to make them all very large in font so that when I type this score in there, the score appears very nice and clear for me on the right-hand side. Now the last thing you want to do is you want to set up an adding cell, a summation cell. So what I always do is I always put it a couple lines below my lowest point in the rubric, and I wrote total points. And again, I'm going to format this so it's nice and clear. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is we're going to write a formula. So in order to write a formula, first thing you're going to do is you're going to type an equal sign. Okay, and you'll see that right here in my function bar, an equal appears. So again, if I hit delete, you see the equal disappears. When I type an equal, and an equal tells the computer, it tells the program, I'm about to perform a calculation. So what I want to do is I want to do a sum. I want to add it all up. So I'm going to type sum, S-U-M. And you'll notice that what's cool about Google Docs is it gives you the format for the different formulas. So I don't want to do sum ifs or any of these other ones. If you're into Excel and you like to program, there's tons of great things and we could talk about this. But I'm just going to do plain old regular sum. And you can see that it says sum, number, comma, so on and so forth. Basically, it's going to add. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to add up everything in this column that's in G. So I'm going to click and drag down. And you can see that it goes G4 colon G5. And what that's telling you is it's going to add up all the cells between G4 and G5. Obviously, if I had 4 or 5 or 6 categories, I could just drag all the way through. And it would do all of them. And the last thing I want to do is I want to close out my parentheses. And then I'm going to hit enter. And it's going to calculate my points for me automatically. So that, and the beautiful thing is, it changes as I make changes. So let's say I accidentally type the X's in the wrong cell. And I said, oh, no, I went back and I changed my mind and this person's going to get a 5. All I have to do is change this number to a 5 and my number changes automatically for me. And that's the beauty of Google Spreadsheets, eliminating all that paper that you have to accumulate as you're doing all these projects using holistic rubrics.